Hello and happy 2023. I cannot believe that it's already the new year. We are already rolling with our new mission in Social Media Pulse. Our mission this month is workflows. And we are kicking it off this morning, diving right into the new year, our new mission with an office hour dedicated to helping you get a little bit more organized with tracking your time, with processes for doing that, and workflows for doing that. I know that's something that I continually struggle with. And my guest today is an expert, has lots and lots of experience managing lots and lots of clients and lots of projects and lots of people to get that done. So I'm so excited that you're joining us here today to learn more about that, whether you're joining us live or you're joining us for the replay, whether you're joining us on social media or within the Social Media Pulse community. Welcome. Be sure to comment. Let us know where you're joining us from. Is time management maybe something, or time tracking maybe something that you've set a little bit of a New Year's resolution for? Would love to hear about that as well. So, oh, it looks like Kylie's on. So, hi, Kylie. Happy New Year. I'm so glad that you can catch the live today, too. Kylie is one of our OG social media manager school members. And so, long history with Kylie and the great work that she's doing with her boutique agency. So, thanks so much for joining today. Okay, without further ado, let's talk a little bit more about today's guest. So, my guest today, Eric Elkins, he is the CEO and chief strategist at Wide Focus Social Media, an agency in Denver that specializes in social media. So, for us folks at Social Media Pulse, very near and dear to our heart. And his team drives tangible results for B2B tech and SaaS companies primarily. You can check out more about Eric by reading the bio or the post, the company's today's office hour in Social Media Pulse community or on social media. But I'm going to go ahead and bring Eric on so he can tell us a little bit more about himself. So, welcome, Eric. So
Good
glad to see
morning.
you.
Happy to be here, Ruth.
Good morning. Good morning. So you're in Denver. So my
Yep.
apologies that you are in your office talking to me today instead of on the slopes, right?
There's a lot of snow up there right now.
There's a lot of snow up there right now. I'm jealous that that you're so close to it, um, and B that I'm not there. So hopefully you'll be able to maybe do some of that this weekend. And I know you're a snowboarder.
I am.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, Eric. So you have processes for time management without multitasking. But before we kind of dive into that meat and potatoes of today's conversation, tell me a little bit more about your agency, how you got involved in social media work. Just give our viewers a little bit of the overview of Eric and Wide Focus.
Yeah, happy to. I started Wide Focus back in 2007. So we just celebrated 15 years in business this fall, which is kind of amazing and hard to believe sometimes. Those were the early days when it was more about user-generated content and blog posts, and we've really had to grow and learn as the social media landscape has changed. As you mentioned, we do a lot of B2B tech and SaaS social, but we do B2C as well. It's sort of 50-50, and it's always about target audiences and business goals, understanding who our clients want to reach and what they want them to do. We have an amazing team located all over the US, which is one of the silver linings to the whole COVID thing. Was once we got rid of our office, it really allowed us to expand on our talent pool. So we're always looking for talented community managers and content writers and ad strategists. Um, when I started the company, I thought I was going to do like more marketing consulting. I had just come out of a startup where I was VP of marketing, and social media was a nascent kind of idea. And it was something that I had headed up for our company. But really what happened was companies started asking me for social media help and guidance. And then I had some really good advice from the VC of the company that I had just left, where he said, you know how on your website you have marketing consulting and PR and copywriting and copy editing and social media down at the bottom. He said, you should get rid of all that stuff and just say you do social media, and you're going to be busier than you could imagine. And he's a smart guy, took his advice. And literally the next networking event I went to, someone said, what do you do? And I said, social media. And she said, I need your card. We need help with that. So that's kind of how it all started.
I hear a similar version of that story so often from people who were working in marketing around that 2006 to 2008 time span, especially people who were coming out of school at that time. About that's how they became specialized, was just filling a need that was, as you mentioned, nascent, just starting to emerge.
Mhm.
And it's incredible the people who embrace that and how they've established a foothold in the space just by adopting something a little bit earlier and being a little bit more forward thinking and insightful. So good job to the person who recommended that to you, and good job to you for latching onto it and being able to specialize, because it absolutely appears to have worked out for you
Yeah,
and your agency.
so far so good.
So far, so good. So you're going to share with us a little bit about processes to track time. So have you always enjoyed, and not necessarily just tracking time management
Mhm.
also, have you always enjoyed processes and workflows, or is that something that you as a business owner have had to learn to love?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I've loved processes in structure, but I've also learned that when I don't have it, I don't perform as well.
Mm.
Um, I kind of say that I can tend to be sort of a lazy or maybe unfocused worker, where I'm jumping from task to task more on the things I want to do than the things I should be doing. And I definitely get sucked into just like sitting in my inbox all day and just answering emails as they come through and not really doing a whole bunch of productive work. Learning early on, especially when it was just me or one other employee, how to make sure that we're managing all of our clients, and also that I'm getting all my work done, helped me realize that I needed processes in place. And now with, 10 plus people on the team all over the country, 20 or 30 clients at any given moment, we really need processes to help us make sure that the needs of our clients are being met, that our team understands, yeah, every member of the team understands what he or she needs to do and when. But also just on a personal basis, like I don't have a job where I'm doing the same thing day after day and week after week. So having processes and understanding time management has helped me be a lot better about prioritizing and getting the things done that need to get done, and helping the team do that as well.
Mhm. So, a follow-up question to that would be, then you've got a lot of employees. My gut tells me that probably not all of them naturally are inclined to love processes, to love systems, and to be able to adopt that. So, do you find that having a system in place helps people who might not be as naturally inclined to do that adopt it more readily? Or do you still have to do a lot of cajoling and um, forcing people to use a system or process? What's your experience with that?
Yeah, I think the heaviest lift for anybody coming into our team, especially if they have more social media management experience on the client side or as an independent freelancer,
Mhm.
um, has been learning processes and that high degree of accountability that comes with working in an agency. I always say that we have a really low degree of structure and a high degree of accountability in what we do, which means people can really set their own sort of schedules from day to day about how they're going to get stuff done, but it still has to hit deadlines. They still need to track their time, and we still need to do the work that's been assigned. So there is there is a steep learning curve at the beginning to learn how to use our processes to really help keep people on track. And some people come in and get it right away because they're structured already, and that's kind of their personality style. For the ones who are a little more artistic or have a little more of a um, less of a structured kind of way of working, it can be a challenge at first.
Mhm.
And it's a challenge for all of us. And we're constantly refining those processes and trying to give people the time and the training to get good at it. And then it is a lot of just reminders. Hey, don't forget to check that off in Asana. Hey, make sure you're using your harvest, and just like helping them understand the value of it, but also just get in the habit. And once the
Mhm.
habit's there, it's a lot easier.
Yeah. So many good nuggets of wisdom in that. I particularly like the 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 kind of phrase low degree of structure, high degree of accountability, because I think sometimes people, when they think about systems and processes, people focus on the negative aspect of the process itself, and rather than the positive aspect of the outcome of following that and how it makes things scalable and repeatable. So I really like that framework. And you teased a little bit in your answer there about some of the specific tools that you're using. So can you give us a little peek behind the curtain? What are the processes or systems or tools or workflows or whatever word we want to use to describe it that you use at Wide Focus that helps you track and manage time across team members, clients, and projects?
Yeah, it's really important that we track that. And that's one of the first things we talk about to any new team member, is making sure they're tracking their time and their tasks. Because as much as we don't want to, for feed have someone immediately drinking from the fire hose and try to kind of gently bring them into their workflows, there's a lot that has to be done and understood early on. And I think one of the biggest things, Ruth, that um, community managers have to understand when they come into an agency is the way you price, or at least the way we price our retainers with our clients, is based on how many hours we estimate we're going to need per month to get all of the work done and do everything we need to do. And that hourly kind of overall budget allows us um, to remain profitable, to make sure we have enough time to get everything done, and to really make sure that we're not overloading our community managers. So having them track their time helps us see how much time they're taking per client. It helps us figure out where that time is being used and how to best use it, and help them refine their processes and their workflows so they're staying within those budgeted hours and they're able to do the work that needs to be done in that time. So, excuse me. Um, we have, I think, 12 to 14 years of, and I was just talking about this yesterday, of data using the Harvest app, which is our primary time tracker.
Okay.
You can use it individually, but you can also use it in a company setting. We've been using it for more than a decade, and it allows us to set tasks. There's literally a timer that can sit on your desktop, and that allows you to track the time that something's taking, or to hit the timer to start it and then stop it and start a new task and hit the timer again. That kind of thing helps us see with our team members how much time they're taking. It really helps me. I didn't use it for a long time. And one of our business advisors said, why aren't you tracking your time to see how much time you're putting into these different tasks? It's really good on a micro level to see how much time an individual task is taking you on a weekly basis and how much time you're spending on client work. But it's also great on a macro level because eventually you're able to create some standards and some benchmarks about how much time things normally take.
Mhm.
And then the other tool, like I mentioned, we use Asana. We just started using it at the beginning of last year. We're still kind of getting better at it, but that's more for task management, and to set tasks that need to be done and deadlines, whether they're weekly, whether they are special things that just have to get done within a short amount of time. And it allows us to assign tasks to each other, but also to ourselves. So it's kind of like a to-do list that everybody can get in front of, and everybody can see at the same time. So that lets us know, hey, instead of having to ask, did you finish writing next week's content for this client? If you've marked the task off in Asana, we know it's done.
Mhm.
I like it because I'm um, a post-it note kind of guy, and I have notes everywhere and to-do lists. And if I lose one of those notes, I'm in trouble. And so having Asana with everything that I need to do on there, having our operations director or a client strategy director assign me things helps us all keep each other accountable as well.
Mhm. And you know what's really interesting is that I I have never worked in an agency setting. You know, I've taught students who go on to work in agency settings, things like that, but never worked in agency setting. I had at one point, probably about 10 years ago, also like downloaded Harvest, was going to use it just, just to kind of have some data about myself. But like any tool, the tool can't help you unless you use it.
Hmm.
So my perspective always is, regardless of what you're using for, whether it's a different time tracking tool or if it's a different project management tool, the point is that you actually use it. It's not necessarily a lot of them can probably work for you, but you just have to be able to use it for it to be able to do good work for
I
you.
actually have a funny story about that, literally from last night. So for years, I used a timer task manager called Flex Time, and what
Mhm.
it was it would sit on my desktop, and I would set different tasks for the day that needed to be done, and an amount of time for each one. And because I can get distracted, what I would do is I would set like work on proposal for so and so 20 minutes, and then I'd say play 7 minutes, and that meant like checking email, doing whatever distracting things, get back to the proposal for 20 minutes, and then another play time, and then do the next thing and the next thing. And it was this way that I could keep myself on track for the things I needed to do that day, and I always did better when I had it. But I haven't used it in a long time. And in preparation for this chat today, I was like, oh, I should pull that up because I want to recommend that you use it. But it doesn't exist like it doesn't work on this computer. So obviously I haven't used it for a long time, and it doesn't exist anymore as an app. So it was a big reminder that I haven't been even keeping myself to that um, task manager, that when it worked, when I used it, I was so much more productive than when I didn't. So now I'm looking at new apps,
Yeah.
and there are tons out there. They're like Pomodoro timer apps are the best ones, I think.
Mhm. I think that that just speaks volumes to, earlier you mentioned habit and getting in the habit of doing
Mhm.
something. And for you, as in an agency setting, absolutely, you're tracking billable hours and you have to be accountable to clients and projects and things like that. But for social media managers who are working for themselves or maybe consulting, what do you think the benefit is of having maybe higher levels of structure in your day, as you mentioned, when you were blocking time to do specific things? What do you think the benefit is there?
Yeah, well, I think there are two main benefits. The first one is you're going to be more productive and you're going to be less overwhelmed if each day you set out your goals and you set out the specific deliverables or tasks that you have to complete that day. And you can map it out for a week. But even from day to day, instead of kind of getting lost in the shuffle of, oh, I want to work on this, so I'm gonna skip this one, move it to my next to-do list, whatever those things are, or get sucked into your inbox or Slack and just like it's playing around is what it really is, right?
Mhm,
So the first thing is if you set tasks for each day, it's going to help you be more productive. And if you track how long those things are taking, that's going to help you as well. The second piece of it, excuse me, the second piece of it is you're never going to know how many clients you can actually manage on your own unless you know how much time things are taking. It's easy to kind of think that you can just pile things on, and then at some point you might be like, well, I'm working way too many hours. I guess that's as many clients as I can take. But what you may be doing is um, working way too many hours on stuff that doesn't really matter. And so it's a really important piece of the puzzle to kind of block out time and understand how that time is being used.
mhm,
One of the best strategies, I think, in addition to tracking your time, to using a task manager that has a timer on it, like a Pomodoro timer, is to also do block time. And this is something, again, one of those things that I should be better at, which is on your calendar, block out 45 minutes to work on the content for this client, and then give yourself a 15-minute break to check emails, get a snack, go to the bathroom, whatever it is, and then block out another 45 minutes to work on something else, and put that time in your calendar as blocked out time where you're not taking
Mhm.
meetings, you're not doing anything but doing that work.
Yeah, I know. So we do have a couple of comments that I'm gonna pull up,
Oh,
but I
cool.
do know Phyllis, who also hosts Office Hour with me, she is a big, big fan of time blocking. So if you have additional comments that you would like to make about blocking time, Phyllis, go ahead and put in the chat. We will put that up on the screen. And then also, I don't know Katie, but I'm assuming you do, Eric. Katie says that my task column is very helpful and it helps us make sure Eric doesn't it cut it off. So I'm not sure the rest of that what the rest of that thought was. But I think seems to be a fan of looking through your day and looking at tasks for the specific day.
Yeah, Katie is our operations director, and she is our Asana maven. She's the one who's cajoling us all to use it better, for sure, and helping us find the ways that really fit our personalities and our kind of style. And it probably says doesn't miss the things that are important, because she adds tasks to my list, and often she'll say, "Hey, can you please make sure that this happens this week?" And I'll be like, yes, can you put it on the calendar, or create an Asana task? And she
Mhm,
can see what I've gotten done and what I haven't. And that really helps her manage up in a way to make sure that I'm working on the things that are the highest priority.
mhm. Yeah, we project managers, operation managers, some people love to hate them. I particularly really value our project managers at Agorapulse, Yago, and CC. They're great. But yeah, I bet that Katie and those two could have a lot of conversations about project management. Phyllis says, I developed time blocking for myself way before it was a term. So here is something that I'm just kind of going off script a little bit.
Hmm.
As we're talking about time management, also time tracking, we mentioned earlier, like you just have to get in a habit. You have to do something because if you're not working toward doing that, then it won't matter for you. So we've talked about a lot of different ways to do that, whether that's very formalized through Asana and you've got a dedicated project manager who's helping assign tasks, or using apps and tools, or even the sticky note method of this is what I have to do today. I know people who love just crossing things off the list.
Yeah.
One way I have managed my time before, because it is overwhelming for somebody to think about adopting a whole tool that they have to learn and
Mhm.
developing the process. I found myself sometimes just setting a timer literally on my phone. I'm going to give myself 7 minutes to do this, and then I have to move on. Or I'm going to give myself
Yeah.
an hour to do this. Just the timer on your phone. You don't have to have a fancy app. You don't have to have something where you're collecting data, although that's awesome if you do. You can do it a lot of different ways.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, and with the post-it note thing, the key is not putting too much on that post-it note, right? And
Oh,
making it indispensable. It's like if you did a post-it note each morning of the 3 things that you're gonna accomplish that day and put that up there and, happily cross those things off, that's great. But if you have 18 post-it notes of all the things you haven't gotten done, then it starts to get a little unwieldy, you know? I
you're
know
right.
for, years ago, we were doing consulting with a nonprofit, and their social media manager was like, he was also um he also had like 12 other things he had to do every day, and a lot of different responsibilities in addition to social media. And literally the thing that helped him was on a post-it note, he had Monday through Friday, um, uh, basically just what he was going to post for each day, or the theme for each day. And he said that made his life so much easier because he knew exactly, he didn't exactly every day. Like every Tuesday, it was a photo from the preschool. Every Wednesday, it was a curated post about an event going on in the community. Every Thursday, it was something else. And so that helped him set a structure and also made it so he didn't have to guess each day of what he was going to post. And
Mhm.
so you can post-it notes are great, and setting a timer is an amazing way, as long as you follow it, to really stay on a task. But the key is just being consistent and using those things, like you said.
Yep. Yeah. So Kylie says this is a needed conversation. So very, very glad that you think so, Kylie, because I think so too. I've always been a person drawn to processes and systems, but I think I personally ebb and flow with how nuanced I get with organizing my time and my calendar and my task list. And one of the things that came to mind for me, Eric, as you were talking about the friend who had just the daily post-it,
Hmm.
is sometimes I think people who tend to not be able to stick with or like time project tracking management type systems is that it seems way too granular and in the weeds, right?
Mm,
Like 500 tasks and steps that you have to do in order to accomplish something. You're absolutely right. That is so much harder to manage than just here's my one outcome for the day or my top 3 things that I want to do for the day.
mhm.
So if you're watching this and you are still overwhelmed by the idea of it, maybe adopt that. Just list your top 3 things that you want to complete for that particular day. I really like that approach.
Yeah, and set a timer on your phone for each one.
I
Even
like
if
that too.
I keep mentioning the Pomodoro method, which is this idea of it's a tomato timer, and you turn it for 20 minutes, and you do whatever that task is for 20 minutes, and then that gives you time to stop, do other things, check your email, whatever it is you're going to do, and then you
Mhm,
set it again and get back to work on the same thing. That's what these desktop timers or Pomodoro task managers, whatever you want to call them, you can find them on the app stores,
mhm,
can do. But you don't necessarily need that. If you had your post-it note with your 3 things, and you had your phone where
mhm,
you're like giving yourself 20-minute increments. I'll be honest, when I first started, I did 12-minute increments because that was as long as I could stay focused on a
yes.
single task. And then I'd give myself 3 minutes to look at whatever else, my phone,
Mhm,
whatever, and then 12 minutes back into it. So set like an interval that feels sustainable to you, and use
mhm,
your phone timer or your timer on your computer, and just stick to that task until it's done, and then
mhm.
switch to the next one.
And I also think doing it that way, for me, when I've done that before, when I've set a timer, it helps me become more efficient at the task that I'm doing because I know I'm limited on my amount of time to do it. So the other thing that I would recommend if you're setting a timer to work on a task for a certain amount of time, if you're trying to complete that task in that amount of time, don't kick the can down the road. Don't hit the snooze button, so to speak, on your timer on your phone and say, oh, I didn't get to it in this 12 minutes. I'm going to extend it to the next 12. That doesn't help you.
Mhm,
I adopted it mostly when I was a university professor and grading sets of papers, 30 to 50 in a class. You take 7 minutes per paper, that adds up to, 2 to 3 hours,
mhm.
3 or more hours to grade. 7 minutes when you're grading something that's a written paper seems like a long time, but it's really not. It helped me get more efficient, where I would be more consistent through my all the volume of tasks because I was dedicating the same amount of time and energy to each one and not a whole bunch of time and energy to the first 5, and then you wane at the end and they don't get the
Yeah.
attention that they deserve.
That's the big conversation we have with our newest community managers, is they're taking a lot of time to write, the weekly Facebook posts, Instagram posts, and LinkedIn or whatever else it is for that client for the coming week. And they get very precious and slow. And each post takes 15 minutes when it should take, 5.
Mhm,
And it's a process of helping them understand that they need to write really well, but write really fast, and get better and better, and kind of
mhm.
power through instead of get lost in the weeds of making that one individual post so much better than
Yeah.
all the rest.
Okay, I don't wanna derail us, but a different topic for a different day would be AI and how that's going to change or hurt
Oof.
or improve what we're doing with that. But again, that's a whole other can of worms. So great conversation happening right now. If you're watching live or if you're watching the replay, I would like to mention that Christine Gritman, our senior content editor, is over in the Social Media Pulse community right now, community managing, writing some summaries, writing some comments. So if you would like to go hop over to the conversation in the community, if you're on social, want to hop over there and see kind of the longer conversation, the URL for that is going right below in the ticker below, socialmediapulse.info/OH office hour dash January 5. So we have covered a lot of ground, but I do have some other questions that I had planned to ask that we haven't got to. One of which we're halfway through. In the title of today's conversation, Eric, we said how to manage your time without multitasking, in parentheses. But I think
Mhm.
that's a big concern for a lot of people also is that when we are managing so many different things and we're getting so many different notifications and signals about things that we need to be working on and Slack messages and emails and social media notifications. What is your advice for doing this without multitasking?
Yeah, yeah. I find myself switching from window to window to tab to whatever over the course of a day, even over a course of a single task. And what happens is, first of all, it takes a lot longer to get any one thing done when you're flipping around. You write a post, you flip over to your email, you write another post, you flip over to Slack. Um, so really setting that timer, turning off your other distractions, whether it's closing your email and Slack entirely while you're working on a specific task, you won't, 20 minutes, you can do it. And then you can pull it all back up for 5 or 10. Don't get sucked into doing it for the rest of the day. And then another 20-minute head down, and distractions off. Katie, who made a comment, has really focused on, because she gets pulled in all different directions every single day. She'll turn off her notifications on Slack when she has to manage payroll or handle something that uh, deserves a high degree of concentration. So it's really, I think it's the hardest part, but it's most important part is understanding that if you have a task at hand, a project, or just the daily writing that you have to do, if you are switching between doing that task and checking your emails and answering Slacks and answering texts, it's going to take you so much longer to get that stuff done. So yeah, put the distractions away, minimize windows, do whatever it takes, and set that timer and stick
Mhm.
to it until you're done. And then you can play, and then you can see what's happened. Unless something, really um, surprising has gone on in the world, those 20 minutes are probably okay without you being hooked into your email.
Um, to loop back earlier to the comment you made about a high degree of accountability, one of the things that I wonder about um, is culture across different organizations on giving employees space to do that. So, hopefully good culture. I have good culture at my organization. You have good culture at your organization. That's absolutely how we operate also. In Slack, we can pause notifications. Everyone's really good about putting, you can set your status to whatever you're working on. If you're deep work for a certain amount of time, and it'll tell people kind of when you're going to be back, and we're just accountable that way. What advice would you have for somebody who feels like the culture, either at their organization or maybe they've got really needy clients who
Yeah.
expect really immediate attention? What advice do you have for handling something like that?
Yeah, the key is communication, is is setting a standard, building your boundaries and sticking to them. It's not always easy to do, especially in a larger environment where you are expected to answer a Slack the second it comes in.
Mhm,
But there's a process, right? And there's the first thing is holding yourself accountable and setting boundaries on your own work time and your task management, and then making sure you're communicating that outward. So to be able to put in and this is one thing that Katie has asked us all to do, is in our Slack, if we're doing deep focus time, we just put that in our status and turn
Mhm.
off our notifications. So if someone does reach out, they know, and you can be very clear, back on at 10:20, to
Mhm.
give them an idea of when to expect a response. Um, with clients, that's the tough love piece. Sometimes you have to just not respond until you're able to. And
Mhm.
then you can say to them very clearly, hey, I will always respond within an hour of your emails, but I don't multitask. So when I'm in deep focus on your work, I'm not going to respond until I'm done with that work. So it's an uphill kind of process, but if you're open and honest and direct with your communication about what you're doing and why you don't respond in a short amount of time, and start setting expectations early, it allows you kind of to cultivate that respect for your time. But you got to
Mhm.
start with yourself, respecting your own time.
Yep. Yeah, and I think that again that we're talking about a whole all month. We're going to be talking about workflows, systems, processes, sort of that new year, let's reset, let's adopt some new practices type mentality. I'm not going to call them New Year's resolutions. It's just if you want to improve your workflows and processes this month, Social Media Pulse community, we're going to be covering a lot of different areas about that. But I think this would be my time I would pause and encourage you if you're watching the replay or you're watching live and you don't have that type of I keep saying the word culture, but that's the best term I can think of to describe it, set up either at your organization or with your clients. Now's a really good time to do that. And then also, I think it underscores when you're working with clients, when you're onboarding them and you're vetting clients, it's about setting that expectation early on also, and
Mhm.
making sure the relationship, the expectations are set both sides of the fence.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. One thing that I'm wondering, Eric, that I would like to again loop back to, specifically, you mentioned the Harvest app, you've mentioned Asana, you've mentioned Pomodoro. We know there are alternatives. Did you at your agency have you worked through several different iterations of time management or project management tools to land on those particular ones? And if so, what have you tried?
Yeah, I mean, it's been 15 years, so we've tried a lot of things. And it's been kind of an iterative and constantly learning process. Um, it was pretty loose at the beginning in those early days, and we just kind of assumed that people were getting their work done, and then we would be surprised when it wasn't done on time. And more importantly, weren't able to give them the support they needed when they needed it so that they could get their work done on time. So,
Mhm.
um, no, some process is better than no process, I would say. They're, testing out tools and giving them a chance is really important. Um, we've, I'm trying to think of, we haven't, I mean, mostly what we've done in the past is spreadsheets and Google Docs, and that's not always ideal for people who need a little better user experience and who may not love spreadsheets or might be overwhelmed by them and not really understand how to track their time or do the um, make the adjustments there. So for us, figuring out that harvest is something we started from the beginning, but figuring out a time tracking system that just works for you from the start. You can always change if it doesn't feel intuitive, but it's just using anything and trying it and just trying to get into a good habit is really important.
Mhm.
Like I said, Asana, we just started it last year and we're still figuring it out, but it definitely keeps us more honest and more accountable on our process management.
Mhm. Okay. I like that. I've used a lot of them as well. And I think it again, it just sort of depends on what part of what tool you're going to use. Just try something if you're not using something right now.
Yeah.
Both Kylie and Phyllis, I neglected to see these in the chat as they came in, but both Kylie and Phyllis definitely appreciate the notion of deep focus work and blocking time for deep focus. Um, I do that a lot too because I'm the type of person who um, in order to really make progress on something, I have to commit some time. I'm more of a slow thinker on things. I can't just, Deb, our community manager, can attest to this. She's very, very considerate of me when we say, hey, we want to have a brainstorming meeting. And I say, I would like to brainstorm by myself independently first and then come to the meeting with ideas, right? It takes me some time
Mhm.
to ruminate on things. And so I also really value deep work, and I set my status in Slack to deep work a lot. And the thing about Slack that I like when you're setting your status is you can have little emojis. So
Mhm.
when it's deep work, I have a little brain because I'm thinking really hard. That's my go-to emoji for deep work in Slack. So try that out. Okay. I'm going to go back to my cheat sheet list of questions,
Mhm.
see if what we haven't covered yet. Okay, we've kind of covered this, but it was a scripted question that I had, Eric. So let's reiterate. If someone is really overwhelmed by the idea of time tracking, time management, what's the best first step they can take to get the ball rolling on that?
Um, do something small. Do like create one process that's going to help you. Maybe it's as easy as a 3 task post-it note and a timer on your phone, and just starting to use that. Um, or it's finding an app like a Pomodoro app that's going to allow you to put in your tasks for the day and start setting out how much time each thing should take and kind of tracking how that goes. Like you don't have to suddenly pull up Harvest and create all the categories and start tracking your time and doing all that stuff all at once. Like pick one thing you can do today that's going to help you be um, more productive, more accountable, more efficient. It can be as small as one post-it note a day. It can be like I said, downloading an app and using it and giving it a try. But just like just do one thing, and then you can layer on more processes as you go, but get good at that and then add some more to it rather than trying to do 12 new things on the same day.
Mhm. My grandmother used to have she was an incredibly creative person and sewed a lot. And I think it was needlepoint, but it could have been cross stitch. It could have been something else. That's a needless detail there. But she used to have in her bathroom. I don't know why it was in her bathroom, but it was a little sign with a turtle, and it said, "The hardest thing to get is going." And that was like ingrained on me as a kid, just the idea of like getting started is the hardest. And once you get started, it is easier to continue doing something. So just getting started
Yeah.
is absolute
One
hardest.
one small thing. Just do one small thing. Like a 0.5% improvement today and another one tomorrow and another one the next day will get you incrementally where you need to go. But don't feel
Absolutely.
like you need to. The thing about Asana for us was we had to just kind of slowly institute it, and bring people in one by one and add clients one by one. Um, in any new process, it takes time. So
Mhm.
start small and then build on whatever you're doing.
Yep. Okay. I love that. Phyllis, always the voice of the independent freelance social media manager. So I'm really, really glad that she's in the comments adding that perspective to the conversation, because she has a few things that I'm going to throw up, throw up that I'm going to put up on the screen one at a time. So what Phyllis says is that she used the Harvest time tracking app when she consulted with an agency a few years ago. It was cumbersome for her as a freelancer. I think that was my experience with it also when I was just trying to track my own time, like when I was working full time in house at an organization. It was a little bit cumbersome for me. So, absolutely agree with you, Phyllis. Some tools might not be for you. So, if you hear every single social media person in the world raving about Asana or Harvest or Basecamp or Trello or whatever the tool is that they love, it's okay if it doesn't work for you. Ditto that 1,000%. And her other perspective is because of that, because the reason why some tools might not work for freelancers is that freelancers don't usually track their time or tracking project work. Some
Yeah.
freelancers I know do bill by the hour though. So if you do bill by the hour, then maybe that's an app that would work for you.
But even if you're doing project work, Phyllis, what I would recommend is tracking how much time it takes you to do that work, because your pricing and your productivity will improve, because we're always estimating how much time a project's going to take to complete, and your ability to estimate is going to get better the more you track how much time it takes to do each thing. We're reworking a lot of our pricing right now based on the reality on the ground versus how much time I think something's going to take. That was a lot of pressure from the team, which was like, hey, you gave us 10 hours a month for this client, but we really need 15 to do it well. And so looking at our time tracking and figuring out where that time is being used and how helps me do the pricing better. So especially for a freelancer, Phyllis, you've been doing it long enough that you probably have an idea of how much time a project should take. But I think, especially for newer people, to keep yourself accountable and to be able to price your time better and to know how much work you can actually reasonably take on, tracking your time for per task and per client is going to help you understand that better.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that, and Phyllis, agrees as well. And for Phyllis, who I know is really good at blocking time and working within those time blocks, she's kind of saying for her it works better to use time blocking rather than time tracking, and just make sure you're not working inside or outside of that time that you have dedicated to a particular client. That's how she manages it.
Nice.
And this is the thing. I worked in higher ed with people just getting started out. And this absolutely is the thing that I found for the people who would go right out of school. They've got a degree in hand. They're 22. They're going to be a freelancer, and they think they know how long something's going to take. And they grossly underestimate
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
much time it takes to do.
And when you do that, you're undercharging, right?
Mhm.
And you're also not allowing yourself the amount of time you actually need to get things done well.
Mhm. Mhm. Uh-huh. 100% yes to that. Um, okay, so we're rounding out our hour here. This is a little bit outside of the scope of what we were scheduled to talk about today, Eric, but you've mentioned it a couple times about using the data
Mhm.
from Harvest to help you set and adjust prices, to set and adjust maybe how much time you've estimated to work on client projects. So tell me a little bit, like, what type of data do you get from that Harvest app? Are you able to set your own kind of categories of time? What does it look like? I'm just curious.
Yeah, in fact, Katie and Amanda on my team are reworking our categories and our tasks to match more what we do now versus when we started Harvest. But we have everything set up from content research to content editing to content writing to scheduling to um, meetings and phone calls and internal meetings and external meetings and what else? Ad writing versus um, ad serving versus optimization of the ads. Like all those different tasks
Mhm.
allow us to really look and see how much time things take. One of the biggest things for us is we know when I'm pitching a client and saying, hey, we're going to do 5 Facebook posts a week, 4 LinkedIn posts, 3 Instagram posts, and 2 stories every week. Figuring out how much time all of that takes is a really important piece of how we figure out the pricing. And what we've realized is there's not a big difference in time between 4 and 3 Facebook posts. There's a bigger difference in, the types of posts or the assets needed. Do they have a graphic designer, or are we doing the graphic design? Are we digging for more content because they don't have much? Like that's where the time is. And the way we've learned to do that is by looking at Harvest and seeing how much time content planning is taking versus the actual content writing. So it's helped us really get granular about how long every task takes, so that
Mhm.
we're better able to understand how much time our community managers need based on the frequency of the posts, the cadence, even the level of client communication, and making sure that we're tying our pricing and the hours we're giving to our team
Mhm.
back to reasonable amounts of time.
Do you ask your employees to track all of their time or just billable hours?
Both.
Both.
So there are non-billable and billable. So they have break time, they have internal wide focus meeting time, emails. We even have ourselves as a client where they're tracking time when they're doing our own social media. So
Mhm.
um, we want because we want to know how they're spending their time. It helps us understand if they can take on another client or if they're maxed out. We never want to burn anybody out. So for us, we say we want to give them a max of like 32 billable hours a week. And then they get another 3 for internal stuff and then 5 for breaks and lunch and all of that.
I think I'm remembering this correctly, but I believe your agency, you do real-time social media management, right?
Yeah.
Which is a little bit different than some other agencies. So one of the questions I have then is a lot of, real-time social media management is happening. They're scrolling on their phone, they see something, and they're replying and commenting and engaging that way.
Mhm.
Um, does Harvest have mobile apps? How do you manage time and tracking when someone's not at a desk?
Yeah. So you can definitely use Harvest as a mobile app, but a lot of times what'll happen is the easier thing to do is to just report it later. So
Mhm.
if you took 5-10 minutes on Christmas Eve because something blew up on social
Yeah,
and you needed to hide a comment or do something with it, then we trust our team, so we just ask them to add that to Harvest when they have a second. So
yeah,
they might make a note to themselves to add it, or they'll add it right then in their app.
okay.
But yeah, there's stuff. It's not perfect, right? There's just, especially in a real time situation where you are dealing with things on the nights and weekends on occasion, or you're taking 3 minutes or 2 minutes to fix something and then go back to your project. So we
Mhm.
just ask them to kind of auto report how much time each thing took.
Yeah. Yeah, I think again, it's that whole like how granular and in the weeds do you get because you want to be accountable, but at the
Mhm.
same time, you don't want the process of tracking things to become more time consuming than actually doing the thing.
Yeah.
That's a
Sure.
conversation that we have on our team a lot about systems and processes, is that especially at the beginning of adopting a system or process, it takes longer to adopt that new way of doing something than it did doing it the old way. But the idea with the system and process is that it reaps the benefit. It's kind of more of a long game, and down the road is where you're going to see some of that time savings and you're investing a lot of time up front, and then down the road it gets a little bit easier. But I think that's a constant battle with adopting systems like that as well. Do you find that to be true?
Yeah, it's a long process, not to you overuse the word process, but
Yeah.
creating a process is a process, and getting everybody to use it consistently requires a lot of training, a lot of reminders, a lot of
Mhm.
cajoling, a lot of rewarding, and there's a lot of carrot and stick that goes with it. But the most important thing is to help them understand the value of the process and following the process to them and to the rest of the team, because that gives them more intrinsic motivation. We can say, hey, like we did a couple months ago, I said, everybody's going to get an extra $100 if we all complete this process by this deadline. And everybody got it, and we said, we're going to do that one more time just to kind of, lay it in there. So we're all using that process. But then, now in the coming months, it's more consequences than rewards.
Mhm.
But because we explained the reason for the process, and because we gave people time to learn it and to get better at it, and then provided incentives for using it, that helped them understand and get in the habit of using the process. And that helped us get something that's more, on track now.
Yeah. Okay. So we're rounding out the hour. I would like to, for anyone, again, if you're watching live, if you're watching the replay, um, no, this episode is not sponsored by Asana or Harvest. Although Asana or Harvest, if you want to sponsor us, you can. But I do want to give a shout out to our friends at StreamYard, who we are using StreamYard to stream live today. And we're streaming into Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, but also you can catch the replay anytime on those social media platforms or in the community. So once again, I'm going to throw the ticker up if you want to join the conversation in the community. If there are apps and tools that you like, other than the ones that we've talked about today, let us know in the community. That's what the community is all about, is about bouncing ideas off of each other and resources and helping each other. So go ahead and do that. And then as I'm kicking to the, pitching for people to go join us in the community, what are some final thoughts that you have for us today, Eric, about, I think, what was the title today? It was processes for tracking time without multitasking. So final parting thoughts.
Yeah, like I said, start small. Just start tracking your time. Set a timer, do the task, stop the timer when you're done with the task and see how long it's taking. Create some lists, but small lists, daily lists. Of course, it's good to have the list of everything you have to do that week, but then break it down to manageable, digestible bites, and then track that time to see how long each task is taking. Give yourself a chance to mess up, and not do it consistently, but really focus on trying to get consistent in how you're tracking your time, and sticking to your tasks.
I think that's such a good message here for the first week of the new year, when a lot of people are starting a lot of things. So whether that's specific to a time tracking or time management process, or for a lot of people, probably a workout regimen or routine, or something else that we're doing to improve our life, our mental health, our working environment, whatever the case may be, I think that is the best piece of parting advice, and one that I need to take to heart about some things that I want to work on in this new year as well. So thank you so much to everyone who joined us live in the comments here on in the Social Media Pulse community. So we are going to be back in a couple of weeks with our next episode. Again, all month long in the Social Media Pulse community, we are celebrating workflows. So mission workflows. You can improve a number of things across a number of business functions. So be sure to check that out as well. Thanks again for joining us here today, Eric. And, I appreciate you and your agency and all that you do to support Social Media Pulse.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks so much, Ruth.
Thanks so much. See ya.